From regional newsrooms to the top of Australia's biggest newspaper, Melanie has scaled the media ladder, covering courts, winning awards, and now drives the Courier-Mail as deputy editor. Today, we dive into her journey, the evolving media landscape, and how determined resilience was the game changer to hack the Aussie media landscape.
I always wanted to be a journalist because I was always curious. The changing work landscape is a challenge for our industry. People can get paid a lot more to go in entry-level positions with big companies. You really do have to have a passion for journalism. You've got to be enthusiastic. 5 years ago, we were doing certain stories that we now wouldn't do because now people don't want to read that anymore. Your audience shifts.
People going, I want to get into the media industry. What would be your words to them?
Have enthusiasm, do as much unpaid experience as you can, be willing to just...
Well, thank you for joining me today. It is an honour to have you here on Transforming the Game.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. 20 years in the industry, that must have mean you have seen it all, the ups, the downs, and the changes. What was it that first sparked your interest in getting into journalism in the first place?
I always wanted to be a journalist. I remember from primary school really wanting to do that because I was always curious and I really liked writing and I really liked the news. You know, I had parents who always read the local paper, the Gladstone Observer, and, you know, I was exposed to that from a young age and I just wanted to get involved. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. I worked through school to be able to go to uni to do that, but it did prove more difficult to break into the industry than I thought.
Now that's interesting. I love the curiosity is what sparked it, but then it sounded like you needed a bit of persistence to actually get your foot in the door, which the media industry for me does feel like one of those hard sought after industries to actually get in. What was it and how much determination that actually helped you propel your career to get in?
Well, I did a lot of work experience. That was the main thing. Just doing a lot of unpaid work experience. But I had to take my first job in comms. I did comms for Queensland Rail for about a year, but just at the same time kept applying for jobs as they came up in the media. So I ended up getting my first job at the Rockhampton Morning Bulletin, so moving back to central Queensland. And that was probably what helped me break into the industry was having a willingness to work in regional areas.
Yeah. Do you reckon see that sort of work ethic, right? Do whatever it takes. Like you were focused on getting into this mainstream media. Do whatever it takes. You didn't sound like you're precious about what you were doing. It was about getting in there. Do you feel like in today's society maybe people aren't willing to, let's say people would say slum it. They just think, oh, I finished a degree and I should be head journalist or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I think that there is a little bit of that. We do at the Courier-Mail have a great crop of cadet reporters that, you know, they are willing to do the hard yards and they're really, you know, they're very, very good. I think that's because we revamped our kind of program to be able to get kind of the best of the best graduates, with that work ethic. I do think, you know, just the changing, you know, work landscape is a challenge for our industry as well because people can get paid a lot more to go, you know, in entry level positions with, you know, other companies, big companies. So you really do have to have a passion for journalism to really even start in the industry.
Speaking of that, what sort of qualities and traits are you looking for? And you say you got a cadet program, which I love, which is good entry level for people wanting to get their foot in. What are the sort of traits and qualities that would spark you to go, oh yeah, you've got the goods and you will actually survive this industry for those that are looking to get into it?
Yeah, enthusiasm is our biggest thing. You've got to be enthusiastic, want to go out to jobs, like go out to, you know, scenes or go out and interview people, all of that sort of stuff. We can teach the writing and things like that later. Obviously, it's an advantage, but you can't teach enthusiasm. You just can't teach it. So you've got to have that.
They've got to have a passion, right? I find that with any industry where even back in my sport event days and I'd be interviewing people and they'd think they're kind of keen and you could just, I'd like to say sometimes you can just pick it going, you've got what it takes to actually survive in this industry because you're going to get down, you're going to get dirty, you're going to be able to ride the highs and lows, and then you get the endorphin after the event's done. Is it the same with the media industry where people think it's all glamour and getting their hair and makeup done and getting in front of a camera, but really there's a lot of hard work that goes behind the scenes.
Yeah, totally. I think some people get a shock, particularly, well, actually, in any, I was going to say particularly in print journalism, but TV journalism's the same. It's not all glamour. They work bloody long hours in TV, and to get where they get, it's pretty incredible what they've got to do.
Yeah.
So I think in any media, it's long hours. Um, there's not as much opportunity. Something that we come up against a lot at the moment is, there's not as much opportunity to work from home and things like that. It's not a flexible work environment generally. We try our best to be where we can, but it's not. So that's probably a big thing that we've noticed in the last 5 years is, and I can't blame people. They want that kind of work flexibility. So we're up against other industries with that.
I mean, and I guess if people are looking for that, then they're looking in the wrong industry. That's like for me, in my parallel, would say looking at a doctor and doctor saying, I just like a surgeon or something, say, I just want to work from home. You can't do it. Your people that you need to be with, like you've got to be with them and on site. Speaking of like the evolution of flexible working and the way the landscape's gone, the evolution of media landscape, you would have seen it all from back in the day of how important print media was. I remember being a teenager and flipping through the newspaper, and it was such a big thing if you'd done sport and got an interview in the paper, or that's where people used to put ads wanted for a partner, even. Now, fast forward now, that has changed and evolved so much. So, what's been some defining moments for you where you've just seen an entire industry shift from this to core income stream and this is how it works to we've got to pivot fast or the company's going to not survive?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the last probably the last 6 or 7 years, like we definitely have our print product is still incredibly important, but there's such a massive shift to online. I think the biggest business change for us is we would often hold our exclusives to run in the paper. Now it's all about when's it going to get the best traction online? Is it going to be better to do it on, say, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when people are coming home from their commute? All of that sort of stuff really factors into it. So it's not so much about holding your best stories to splash the paper with anymore. It is when will this work for our audience online?
The shift goes from where your core product was, which was the paper, to now it's all the customers always had the control, but now more so about now it's in my time, it's my instant gratification. It's when are they going to get it? Because that takes me into a question I was thinking about with the dilemma on people needing information immediately over making their own stories up and then posting on every single platform available now. So, fake news, real news, someone's reality of something else. How do you manage that based on what you just said on when you actually deliver the news to when you go, well, we need to get out first, actually, because people are going to start spreading this?
Yeah, probably a really good example of that was when the William Billa tragedy happened with the three police officers,
Oh, that was
sorry,
big.
two police officers and a civilian tragically shot out at a property out at Tara. We were hearing a lot at the time, that we just took our time to verify it, not just on the night, but in the days following. There's a lot going on about, who they were, what their conspiracy theories were, all of that sort of stuff. And we just said, hang on, we need to verify all of this before it goes out. There were probably other media outlets that weren't as stringent on that, but we're still incredibly proud of our coverage of that because we knew that everything going out was 100% accurate.
Actual.
Yeah.
And that I guess is that something that for the Courier-Mail, the Sunday Mail, because you are one of Australia's leading media providers, is that something that's high in your value and missions, that it's not all about the clickbait, it's not all about that. Have you ever had a dilemma where you faced deciding which story to run and when to run it based on getting the most views or actually doing what you felt internally ethically right?
We always go with what's ethically right. Well, obviously mistakes get made, But in general, that's our main focus, is ensuring that everything's accurate. And I think that there probably was, like, a few years ago, not necessarily from us, but from all mainstream media, it was a real rush on that everybody had to be first
First.
online, and there was probably a bit of a bit of a tendency to just go with it and then backtrack later. Because that is the thing with online, right? It's not there forever like a newspaper. You can wind it back a little bit. There definitely was that trend as kind of other media players came into the market, like your
Mhm.
Daily Mails and kind of even BuzzFeed at the time, things like that. But I think we've stepped away from that now and just gone back to our core kind of business. But yes, like journalists, you have to work a lot quicker than you used to, so we are working to verify things to get them up as soon as possible. But, we never want to compromise accuracy.
Yeah, okay. And has technology and the transformation of technology, AI, assisted you in that respect, or it's not really playing a game there for you guys?
Yeah, AI is a bit funny. We're still working out how it works with our industry. So it's a bit of a watch and see
Yeah.
at the moment. Obviously, it makes it harder verifying things. We've had photos come across. We're like, that's AI.
Yeah.
Like that, we can't publish that. But if we still have to, like everybody else in society, I guess we still have to run our eyes over it and think, is that a story or has someone made that up? Is that AI? Like, so yes, in some ways it's hindered us. I think it will benefit us in some way, but I just don't know yet. And I'm probably a bit, skeptical at the moment, but there has to be a way to use it. So we're just still figuring it out.
That it's and you know what? That's a good way for especially such a high end and traditional media outlet that you are in. To that is good and probably appreciated that you guys are being a little bit cautious rather than just jumping in, because there is one side of AI, and I'm heavily involved with some AI in some companies where you can rush in and there is productivity uplift, but then for you, which it's all about information, I find the biggest risk is people use AI to quickly get an outcome, but they're not stopping and verifying. They're like,
Mm.
here's my caption, here's my story. Or people are getting super cheeky, like you say, and they are just AIing so many photos that it worries me down the track that everything will be so artificial, it will get hard to know what's real. So I guess if you stay that hard line and you can hold that tradition going, our stories are still run by humans, you'll keep that credibility longer until
Yeah.
you can really verify. Has that, do you think, with the way everything is going, has your target market shifted over time now, in the past 5 years in particular?
It has a little bit. Like we still have our core rusted on readers, which are the older generation that still picks up a paper, but they also, a lot of them use our digital print edition, which is on the website and you can read it like a paper, but you can read it on your iPhone or your iPad. A lot of, like, my parents do that. A lot of older readers are doing that. So they'll still read the paper, but they'll read it online. We also have a real uptick in people like our age, I guess, that are on the website. And so, appealing to people between that 30 and 50 mark. Some
Likely
of
to
them
get
with a
online and read your paper?
yeah, more likely to get online, read the paper there, have a bit of a disposable income, but also are a bit more savvy to, that you're not going to get everything you need from social media. And, they're more likely to pay for a subscription to keep up to date with things. So, yeah, I feel like our target audience shifts every year
Yeah.
as people age out, or, as we get more with online, we've had this amazing opportunity to get super granular detail of who's reading what, in
Yeah, the
fact,
data.
and all of that. We analyze that a lot, and it does often change. I think, like, at the start of, when we had, we still have paywalls, but at the start of that, we were getting a lot of people just paying to read, their local kind of their neighbour getting arrested and for meth. So we were getting a lot of that, especially in kind of regional areas. But then they'd go with the deal for a month, $1 for a month or whatever, and then
That's
they just wouldn't. Yeah. So we had a focus on doing a lot of those stories at the start, and then it's like, oh, they're not retaining their subscription. So now we've kind of had to pivot and go, what are people who are going to are more likely to retain their subscription, what are they going to read? So the analytics of it are super fascinating when you see who's reading what.
I love that. You've tapped on something I'm very passionate about. So I'm always passionate about the people side of things in the business and the data. And I think sometimes people really like fly over the data side. And what you're pretty much saying is even in the media industry, any industry, especially if you're needing to pivot and in such a influential and high profile and scrutinized industry, the importance of getting down into the detail of looking at the analytics and really understanding that to make sure you stay ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah, totally. It's, I've had cases where, like, 5 years ago we were doing certain stories that we now wouldn't do because 5 years ago that was really working, but now it's not. People don't want to read that anymore. Your audience shifts like so quickly, and just keeping up to date with that is super important. But it also, as a journalist, gives you an idea of what people actually just want to read. Like, are you writing stuff that no one wants to read? What's the point of writing stuff no one
Yeah.
wants to read? And then that comes back to productivity.
And that's exactly it. So it's about creating a culture now in your company where people aren't writing what they want to write, but you're actually customer focused and going, we need to write what they want to read. So that's some companies really struggle when they've got to adapt and change, right? And people get really stuck. And this is what I've always done, especially in your industry. You're constantly needing to change your audience and then probably the style of writing and then when it's going out and everything. How do you keep your team not change fatigued? I hear that a lot in the big companies where they're like, oh, we're so change fatigue and we're this fatigue. How do you combat that to keep all your people working at the highest productivity? Because this is a make or break industry where if you're not constantly biting at the top, you can get left behind really quickly, I feel.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's something that we're constantly, trying to work on. I think that, like I say that, we use like the data to inform what we're writing, but there's also journalism that is like what we would call higher purpose journalism that is not necessarily going to go amazingly online, but it's going to make a difference. And I think that in the community, socially, etc., a lot of our campaigns around mental health, housing, and things like that didn't necessarily get clicks online. But, we got billions of dollars for mental health funding and housing and things like that. So I think sometimes it's kind of that offset of getting journalists, to focus on some of those passion projects, work at, two speeds. Like you've got your passion projects on one side that are going to make a difference and, you're going to feel good about it. And then, you might have a story that, you don't feel as passionate about, but it'll probably go okay online. It's still worthy, but, so you might turn that around a little bit quicker while you're still focusing on, the stuff that people get into journalism for. We get into journalism to make a difference, that's the ultimate game. So, yeah, so we try and balance it that way.
Yeah, okay. Because media, I feel, really does have a responsibility and an influence on society that is beyond probably any other industry, really. You see it when you had the pandemic and everything, the way the media picks up certain things or how they are only reporting on the deaths, and then I watched it pivot to less about that and then about only how many people were getting released. You could see how it changed. Do you think like the media does have a responsibility to still put out that hope and that inspiration? Not to mention that helps with all the AI people looking up stuff because they'll pick up information like that, but there is a responsibility to provide some hope, or is it just always hard truths? And because that does get, you know,
No, I think we do have a responsibility to provide that. Definitely. That's something that we've got to juggle. I know that, in some of our series that we do, like we've done a lot around the Olympics. Some of it has had to be, I guess, negative around the debate for venues, etc. But ultimately, we're trying to provide hope and help make a better Brisbane, right? Like, or Queensland altogether. So, yeah, I think we do have that responsibility. I think we have responsibility to be kind of champions for our the regions that we work in. So for us, it's Queensland. We've always got to put Queensland first and, talk up Queensland, not talk it down.
mm. And some do say that media has power, it's more concentrated in the hands of just a few. Do you think that does impact diversity of thought? If you think back to, not that I follow American media, but you do hear that Fox is very much on one political side, Sky's on the other, and that if you listen to one, when I was in America, you're listening to one and it was almost bashing their president. And I'm like, you don't really hear that in Australia as much. And then you change the channel and they're bashing the other side, and I was, whoa, it's really, and that's just too intense for me. In Australia, do we have a balance, or do you think there's the diversity of thought could diversify more?
I think we've got a pretty good balance. Like, I guess you've kind of got us with the Courier-Mail's a little bit different. We've probably play things a little bit straighter, but you've got, News Corp, you've got ABC, you've got The Guardian, you've got, Daily Mail, you've got, well, what we used to call Fairfax, which is now Nine. It's all, and then I guess you've got to factor in social media too. There's that. I think that we can always work on diversity. I think we try at the Courier-Mail, in our opinion sections to get a diverse opinions in there. Yeah, you can always work on it. I don't think we'll ever end up kind of like America where it's probably a lot of voices, but I think we're pretty good.
I agree. I do know the Courier-Mail's always been pretty on par with bringing the news. It's got, for me, credibility. You've never jeopardized, in my opinion. So I think that when you hold that true for society now, they know if you're looking for news, and when it's so confusing, there's so much out there and you're trying to see what's true. I personally do feel, and tell me if you feel the same, that people do still turn to the Courier-Mail to go, well, I feel like it's a source of truth more so. If you print it, then maybe yes. If it's just online, social media, Instagram, TikTok, less so.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we, like as mainstream media, we've all got an obligation to maintain our credibility. I think that comes back to what I was talking about before, not necessarily having to be first with it, but obviously we want to be first with it, but we need to be verifying it. We've always had a big focus on credibility, but in this social media and AI age, it's even more so. It's something that we really, really strive towards and to maintain.
How do you, in this sort of industry, how do you believe moving forward next 5 years? It's still a business in the end, right? So you have to be profitable, or you can't pay people to be journalists. So how do you believe it can remain profitable with such an era of free information? What's going to be the focus for you guys?
I think again, it's maintaining that credibility so that people, keep buying subscriptions to,
Yeah,
so that they know that they're going to get the accurate kind of news from us. So that'll be our main focus over the next 5 years, is just maintaining that credibility and offering more. To be honest, like we're diversifying into things like, I never thought I'd be involved in like documentary making, documentaries or mini docos or just mini doco series. Like, we've done podcasts, which was obviously incredibly successful for people like Hedley Thomas at the Australian, who did the Chris Dawson podcast that,
yeah.
everyone knows so well. So we are moving into kind of other things that I just never thought that we would do. So a lot of our young journos have to almost be TV journos as well, because we're doing so much in that kind of video space.
Yeah, everything. I love that. And that just shows the pivoting. Like you say, you've gone from back in the day, a kid might have been a really good storyteller and writer, and they're going to get into print. And now the diversification that you need to get into the industry, it's not just writing anymore. You can teach that. It's a willingness, it's a passion. It's now, I love getting into the documentaries. Tell me about it. Getting online, having to get yourself that personal branding out there, the company branding out there, and even each individual needs to be very careful about what they put out online, because it doesn't go away. And if you want a job in your industry, then you've got to be a bit more careful and about what's out there. What do you think, print or digital media?
I choose digital. I still love print. I love making papers, but myself, I always read the digital
You're on the
edition.
digital, the subscription. And that's the transition of the generations. What's your most memorable headline?
My gosh. Oh, there's been so many. Look, I'm not great at writing headlines. Our guys in the office are a lot better at that. We did have one that it's, a hilarious headline. Well, actually, the best headline ever would be the NT News. I put a cracker up my clacker. That is the best headline. That was the bloke who literally put a cracker up his clacker. And then a year later was the infamous like James Packer fight with his kind of boss of Channel 9 at the time. And then they did the headline, I've got a packer up my clacker. which was really great. So that's probably the best. But, we've had, one of the ones that recently was award winning from our office, which was the paper I was editing, was the headline Scarred for Likes, which was a tragic story about basically, kids self-harming on TikTok to get likes. So, that was probably one of the more poignant kind of ones.
Social
But yeah,
media.
there's been a lot. Too many to remember, but the NT News always delivers.
Breed of their own up there. I love that. Who do you think has inspired you the most in the media world?
When I was younger, it was Yana Bent on 60 Minutes.
I remember.
I just loved Yana Bent. Probably she kind of helped me become a journalist in just watching her on TV all the time in the 80s and 90s. And then, probably every editor I've kind of ever had has been amazing and just helped me along on my journey.
If people, there's a younger version of Mel out there listening to this and going, I want to get into the media industry, what would be your words to them?
Have enthusiasm, do as much unpaid experience as you can, within reason, obviously. And just also just be willing to just get in and work.
Work your way and you'll get where you want to be. Stay focused and passionate. Love the industry, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Mel, for your time. It's been absolutely amazing to get sort of the insides into the media world and the workings, and then just how, as a woman, working your way up into such a successful role, but then also having to pivot such a crazy landscape in the last 20 years. It hasn't been smooth. It's completely changed. We'll be seeing you on documentaries and Netflix before you know it. So I really do appreciate taking your time to talk to us today. Thank
No
you.
worries. All good. Thanks, Kristina.